Sir, you need to leave this property immediately.
Excuse me? I live here. This is my home.
I got a call that you're trespassing. You match the description of a suspicious person.
Suspicious? I am the homeowner. This is my house.
Homeowner or not, you're leaving. I need to see your ID now.
I'm providing ID.
Officer Marcus Reed had been with the Boston Police Department for 16 years. In those 16 years, he'd accumulated 30 formal complaints. 25 of them involved black men he'd accused of trespassing, breaking and entering, or not belonging at properties in affluent neighborhoods. A black homeowner unlocking his brownstone was questioned for attempted burglary. A black executive checking his mailbox was detained for suspicious activity. A black professor sitting on his own porch was told he didn't belong there. A black attorney parking in his own driveway was investigated for vehicle theft. A black businessman watering his lawn was handcuffed for trespassing on private property. A black doctor entering his own home with groceries was arrested for breaking and entering. Every complaint ended the same way: property records confirming ownership, internal review that cleared Reed, bias training he attended but dismissed, written warnings that accumulated but meant nothing, union protection that blocked any meaningful discipline. One Saturday afternoon in Boston, his 16-year pattern of assuming black men didn't belong in wealthy neighborhoods finally confronted someone who'd worked his entire career in public service, who'd saved every penny to buy a home in a good school district for his children, and whose arrest would spark outrage from the education community, parents, and civil rights advocates across Massachusetts. That confrontation would end Reed's career, cost the city $2 million, and expose a department that had ignored 30 complaints over 16 years. Michael Thompson, a 43-year-old high school principal, was standing in his own driveway in the Beacon Hill neighborhood, unloading moving boxes from his car after just purchasing the home, when a police car pulled up and an officer stepped out with aggressive posture. His house keys were in his pocket, his closing documents were in a folder inside, his name was on the deed filed that morning. No crime, no trespassing, no violation, just a principal moving into his new home. But Officer Reed saw him through a lens so warped by racial assumptions that he couldn't process a black man unloading boxes at a historic brownstone as the legitimate owner, certainly not as an educator who'd worked 20 years to afford it, and definitely not as someone whose arrest would expose systemic racism in one of America's oldest cities. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be heard. Boston, Massachusetts. Beacon Hill, one of the city's most exclusive and historic neighborhoods with federal-style row houses, brick sidewalks, gas lamps, and residents who valued the area's colonial heritage and exclusivity. Michael's brownstone was a beautifully restored 3-story home built in 1825 that he'd purchased for $1.8 million after 20 years of saving and careful financial planning. It was 2:30 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, temperature 65 degrees, partly cloudy. The historic street was quiet with the peaceful atmosphere of old money and established families. Michael Thompson had been in education for 20 years, the last 6 as principal of King Academy, a public high school in Roxbury serving predominantly black and Latino students from low-income families. He'd started as a high school English teacher in Boston public schools, earned his master's in educational leadership from Boston University, then his doctorate in education from Harvard while serving as an assistant principal. He'd been principal at King Academy for 6 years, transforming the school's culture, raising graduation rates from 58% to 91%, and increasing college acceptance rates dramatically. He'd secured millions in grants, established partnerships with local universities, created programs that sent students to Ivy League schools. He was beloved by students, respected by parents, admired by fellow educators. He earned $145,000 annually as a principal, a solid salary, but it had taken 20 years of saving, careful budgeting, and finally inheriting some money from his grandmother to afford the $1.8 million brownstone in Beacon Hill. He'd wanted his own children to grow up in a neighborhood with excellent schools, safe streets, and opportunities. He'd closed on the house that very morning. He was finally living the American dream. That afternoon, Michael had just completed the closing on his new home, the culmination of 20 years of work. He'd picked up his keys from the lawyer's office, driven to his new house, and started moving boxes from his car. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, sweating from carrying boxes up the front steps, feeling proud and accomplished. He was unloading another box from his trunk when he heard a car stop and an aggressive voice that made his pride turn to dread. Do you think officers should verify property ownership before confronting homeowners? Drop your answer below. Officer Marcus Reed had those 30 complaints over 16 years. 25 involved black men at properties in affluent neighborhoods, a pattern so undeniable that multiple supervisors had recommended his termination, that neighborhood associations had complained about him harassing new black residents, that real estate agents had filed complaints about him interfering with property sales to black buyers, and that internal affairs had flagged him as a severe liability in gentrifying in wealthy areas. But the police union had successfully blocked every disciplinary action, arguing that Reed was protecting property values and preventing crime in high-value neighborhoods. His personnel file was thick with complaints from homeowners, real estate professionals, and community members. One internal affairs report from 2 years ago specifically stated, Officer Reed demonstrates a persistent pattern of assuming black men in affluent neighborhoods are engaged in criminal activity. Regardless of evidence, he has damaged the department's relationship with new residents and real estate professionals working to diversify these neighborhoods. Recommend immediate termination. The recommendation was blocked by the union president, who argued Reed was being punished for aggressive policing in high-crime risk areas. Reed remained on patrol in wealthy neighborhoods because the system protected him. That afternoon, Reed was patrolling Beacon Hill when he received a call about suspicious activity. A neighbor who'd lived on the street for 40 years reported seeing a black man moving items in and out of a brownstone that had just been sold. Reed arrived within minutes and saw Michael in casual clothes carrying boxes. "Sir, you need to vacate this property immediately." Michael turned, confused, a box of books in his hands. "Vacate? This is my house. I own it." "I received a call that you're trespassing at this residence." Michael looked at the box, then at his house, then back at Reed, bewildered. "Trespassing? I live here. I'm standing in my own driveway. I just closed on this house this morning. I'm moving in." "This property doesn't look like it's yours. Show me proof." Michael set the box down carefully. "I'm Michael Thompson. I'm the principal of King Academy in Roxbury. I purchased this house this morning for $1.8 million. I just came from the closing. My closing documents are inside. This is my home. If you can't provide immediate proof of ownership, you need to leave." "Leave my own property?" "Officer, I literally own this house as of 10 Malbain a.m. this morning. The deed is being filed. My lawyer has all the paperwork. My name is Michael Thompson. You can verify everything with property records and the closing attorney." "Step away from the property." "I'm standing in my own driveway at the house I just bought." "I'm the principal of King Academy. I saved for 20 years to buy this house." "Should educators be arrested for moving into their own homes? Let me know what you think." A neighbor walking past stopped, an elderly woman who'd lived on the street for decades. "Officer, is there a problem?" Reed turned to her. "Ma'am, do you know this individual?" The woman looked at Michael, then at the moving boxes, then shook her head. "I don't know him, but the house just sold. Maybe he's the new owner." Reed turned back to Michael. "Sir, final warning. Leave this property or you're under arrest." "Under arrest for moving into my own house?" "You're trespassing on private property." "I own the private property. I bought it this morning." Reed moved toward him. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back." "This is insane. I'm a school principal. I just purchased this house." "You're under arrest for trespassing, obstruction, and disorderly conduct." "Disorderly conduct? I'm carrying boxes." Reed grabbed Michael's arm and forced it behind his back. Michael didn't resist, but spoke clearly. "I am not resisting. I'm complying. I am Michael Thompson, principal of King Academy in Boston Public Schools. I own this property at 247 Mount Vernon Street. I purchased it this morning for $1.8 million. The closing was at 10 a.m. with attorney Sarah Chen. I have the deed, the closing documents, everything inside the house. I'm being arrested in my own driveway for moving into my own home. Officer Reed is arresting me for being black in Beacon Hill. I have witnesses." The neighbor was on her phone, unsure what to do, but sensing something was wrong. Other neighbors were emerging, curious about the commotion. Reed handcuffed Michael, the metal tight on his wrists that had handed diplomas to hundreds of graduates, that had embraced students who'd overcome incredible obstacles, that had signed college recommendation letters changing students' lives. He walked him toward his patrol car while Michael continued speaking. "I'm a high school principal. I've dedicated 20 years to education. I serve underprivileged students in Roxbury. I saved for 20 years to buy this house for my family. I closed this morning, Property records will show Michael Thompson as owner as of today. This officer is arresting me for moving into my own home while black. More neighbors were coming outside now, some recognizing that something seemed wrong. What's happening? One asked. He said he just bought the house. The elderly woman explained. Maybe we should call the real estate agent? Another suggested. One neighbor ran inside to find the sold sign paperwork that listed the buyer's name. Reed placed Michael in the back of his patrol car. Through the window, Michael could see his moving boxes scattered in the driveway, his new front door standing open with more boxes visible inside, neighbors gathering and talking, the brownstone he'd worked 20 years to afford. He'd spent his career fighting for students to have opportunities. Now he was in handcuffs at the opportunity he'd earned for himself. The drive to the station took 27 minutes through Boston traffic. Michael spent it thinking about his students, the parents who trusted him, his own children who'd be living in this house, the message this sent, the lawsuit he'd have to file. They arrived at Boston PD's District A1 station. Reed walked him inside, still handcuffed, past a desk sergeant who looked up with concern. Reed, what's the situation? Trespassing arrest from Beacon Hill. Subject refused to leave a residence. The sergeant frowned. Trespassing where specifically? 247 Mount Vernon Street. He was moving items in and out, no proof of ownership. Michael spoke up, his principal's authoritative voice cutting through. Sergeant, I'm Michael Thompson, principal of King Academy in Boston Public Schools. That's my house. I own it. I purchased it this morning for $1.8 million. The closing was at 10 a.m. with attorney Sarah Chen at Chen & Associates. The deed is being recorded. Today, I was moving boxes into my own home when Officer Reed arrested me for trespassing on my own property. Suffolk County property records will show the sale. My closing attorney can verify everything. This is my home. The sergeant's expression changed. You're a principal? You bought the house today? This morning. 20 years of saving. I'm moving my family into Beacon Hill so my children can attend the excellent schools here. I was carrying boxes when I was arrested at my own house. The sergeant looked at Reed with growing anger. Did you verify ownership? He couldn't provide immediate proof. Because my closing documents are inside the house I just bought. I was moving in. I didn't bring my file folder outside to carry boxes. Did you contact the real estate agent, the closing attorney, check anything? He looked suspicious moving items at that property. The sergeant pulled up Suffolk County property records online. The sale was so recent it was still processing, but he called the Registry of Deeds. Within minutes they confirmed Michael Thompson had purchased 247 Mount Vernon Street that morning for $1.8 million. Sale recorded at 11:47 a.m. The sergeant turned to Reed with fury. He owns the house. He bought it this morning. You arrested a school principal for moving into his own home on the day he purchased it. Within minutes, a deputy superintendent arrived, Lisa Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran who'd been documenting Reed's pattern. She called the closing attorney who confirmed everything, spoke with Michael's colleagues who vouched for him, verified his position as principal. She approached Michael, still handcuffed. Dr. Thompson, this arrest was completely unjustified. You're being released immediately with our deepest apologies. Congratulations on your new home. This should have been a day of celebration, not this nightmare. She turned to Reed with cold fury. You arrested a school principal for moving into the house he purchased this morning. The closing was 12 hours ago. The deed is recorded. You had zero probable cause. Badge and weapon. You're suspended pending termination. Reed protested. Deputy Superintendent, I was responding to a call. You arrested a man carrying boxes into a house he bought. You didn't verify the recent sale. You've generated 30 complaints in 16 years, 25 involving black men at properties. Supervisors have tried to terminate you. You're done. Badge, weapon, now. By that evening, the story was spreading. King Academy students organized in support of their principal. Boston Public Schools issued a statement. Parents expressed outrage. Local news covered it. The education community rallied. Michael filed a comprehensive lawsuit 8 months later against Officer Marcus Reed, his supervisors, and Boston PD. The allegations: false arrest without probable cause on his own property, false imprisonment, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, racial profiling, violation of property rights, intentional infliction of emotional distress, damage to his reputation as an educator. The complaint included Reed's record: 30 complaints, 25 involving black men at properties, blocked terminations. Boston's city attorneys found no defense. Property records proved that morning's purchase. The closing attorney verified everything. Michael's professional credentials were impeccable. Reed made no attempt to verify. The city settled 17 months later. $2 million paid to Michael Thompson. Officer Marcus Reed was terminated 9 weeks after the incident. The termination letter stated, Officer Reed arrested Dr. Michael Thompson, a school principal, for moving into a house he had purchased that same morning. He had no probable cause. His pattern over 16 years demonstrates racial bias. Employment terminated immediately. Reed's name entered the National Decertification Index. Michael testified before Boston City Council. I'm a school principal. I've dedicated 20 years to education, serving students others have written off. I saved for 20 years to buy my dream home in a neighborhood with good schools for my children. On the day I finally achieved that dream, the day I closed, I was arrested for carrying boxes into my own house. Officer Reed saw a black man in Beacon Hill and assumed I didn't belong. 30 complaints, 25 involving black homeowners. The system protected him while he enforced residential segregation with a badge. He continued, $2 million doesn't undo having the best day of my life. Closing on my dream home turned into the worst. My children saw their father in handcuffs at their new house. My students saw their principal arrested for succeeding. But maybe it forces change. Boston PD implemented reforms. Mandatory verification before trespassing arrests at residences. Automatic investigation at 3 complaints. Prohibition on arrests without verified complaints from actual property owners. Why do departments wait for 30 complaints instead of 3? Comment your thoughts. This wasn't about one Saturday afternoon. This was about tolerating Marcus Reed for 16 years, despite 30 complaints showing he couldn't accept black men in wealthy neighborhoods. Reed's career is over. The city paid $2 million, but that came after 16 years of warnings. Michael and his family live happily in their Beacon Hill home. He used the attention to advocate for educational equity and housing justice. The incident became a teaching moment for his students about perseverance and fighting injustice. Comment if homeowners should have absolute protection from arrest on their own property. And if these stories matter, hit that subscribe button. This isn't about one officer or one principal. It's about systems that protect officers who enforce segregation and educators who deserve to celebrate their success without being treated like criminals.